that. Sabbath is, in other words, fundamentally an ethos of self-limitation, something our modern culture is unable and unwilling to do. That's why we have to change the story. And it isn't hard to see how crucial this kind of old wisdom is to our struggle to change the story that is killing us. So, the earth belongs to God, and its fruits are a gift. Therefore, people should justly distribute those fruits and limit their production and consumption. These primal lessons were so crucial to the project of building a post-imperial world that the Israelites were instructed to keep a jar full of manna in front of the covenant as a constant reminder of the foundational two layers of the cake: the priority of the great economy and of the practice of community, or what anthropologists like to call generalized reciprocity. Obviously, this vision is utterly contrary to economics as we know it in modernity. Our incredulity is rather humorously anticipated in the story itself. The word manna is a play on an untranslatable Hebrew term, which probably means, "What the hell is this?" The Israelites, in other words, having been socialized into empire, didn't recognize the cosmology of gift, and neither do we. Nevertheless, this old tale sets the pattern for a new economic ethos throughout the Hebrew Scripture, from Deuteronomic debt release to the Levitical Jubilee, and from liturgical celebrations of shared abundance to prophetic rants against economic disparity in Israel. It is this old cosmology of Sabbath economics that Jesus of Nazareth sought to rehabilitate under the shadow of a different empire. And that, friends, is our task as well. The memory of the manna Jesus shows in his wilderness feedings of the poor and tells as the central petition of the Lord's Prayer, "Give us today enough bread." The Sabbath economics principle of the remainder, in which the edges of every field and the gleanings of every harvest belong by rights, not by charity, to the poor and to the undomesticated animals. That old idea is embodied again when Jesus authorizes his disciples to strip grain from a field because they're hungry. But nowhere in Scripture is the cosmology of grace and economic justice more clearly asserted than in Jesus' musings about the lilies of the field. Can we pass this around? And it's always helpful to have a text in front of us if we're going to take a careful look at that text. This text is, in fact, to our modern North American ears, simplistic, extreme, and or naive. Ah, the lilies of the field. Don't worry. God will take care of you. In the wake of the recent global meltdown of financial markets, Jesus' counsel, "Don't be anxious," seems to us frankly absurd. Don't be anxious? I don't think so. If we Christians pay attention to texts like this at all, it is to sentimentalize them as cute but irrelevant St. Francis moments. Isn't it sweet? Jesus is talking to the birds and the flowers, but he's sure enough not talking to us. As we are going to see, this teaching, in fact, does cut diametrically across our most sacred assumptions about our entitlement to re-engineer nature and secure economic security through market dominance. But what if Jesus means exactly what he says? What if we can't dodge this by spiritualizing it or ignoring it altogether? To take Jesus seriously in this text means that we're going to have to confront the three primary pathologies of modern economic culture: anxiety, addiction, and alienation, as the life and death issues they are. Oh, this text you have in front of us, it's a text of terror, all right. But if heeded, it also represents an invitation to liberation and a key to our task of revising our economic story. Our passage is part of an extended meditation in Luke 12 concerning the fundamental struggle between the dominant imperial economy and the divine economy of grace. Here is an outline of the text. The first section denounces the engineered artificial abundance of the rich and the artificial scarcity of the poor, and launches into an extended diatribe against the lethal predatory force of greed. The second section, in turn, offers two contrasting positive object lessons. Each section concludes with parallel proverbs about treasure, so you can see a little bit of the elegant structure of this teaching. The sequence begins with a dispute over inheritance, literally a distribution of properties. It was an Israelite custom that stipulated that a estate could be divided on the demand of a single son. Jesus' reputation as a wise rabbi may have motivated this approach. For his help, rabbis often played the role of legal arbiters, and that's why Jesus is addressed here as teacher. The fact, however, is that in antiquity, as in today, inheritance laws function to pass on material wealth and thus class privilege from generation to generation, which is why Jesus refuses to engage this dispute and uses it instead as an opportunity to address the deeper issues. Instead, he issues two strong verbs of caution. Watch out and guard yourselves against every form of greed. The Greek here is pleonexia. Jesus perceives greed not as a moral category, but as a lethal predatory force. Pleonexia comes from the Greek stem ple, which is used in words such as multitude, filled, flood, and fulfilled. It's related to the Greek verbs pleonazo, which in the intransitive means to have too much or to grow too big, and pleonekteo, to take advantage of or defraud. This is the vocabulary that proliferates in the New Testament. Greed was universally condemned throughout antiquity as one of the three greatest sins. It is the sin of taking too much, in the words of Exodus 16. Jesus next quotes a proverb that reads literally, "Not even when it abounds to him or her is a person's life made up of that which he or she possesses." The Greek noun in focus here is huparkonton. It's a participle used as a substantive from huparko, meaning to be. The semantic analogy in English would be belongings. Or to paraphrase, we think we are what we own. There's an intimate relationship that was understood in antiquity between having and being, and the temptation to be possessed by our possessions.